Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. You're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. We got Wild Trees co-hosting tonight, and we got Harold Sanford Carter III, the Lone Wolf, here with us tonight. Yep. So let me play these little jingles real quick. We'll get started. It's like a minute or so. So here we go.
You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNTalkRadio.com.
All right, one more.
Looking for stories that are fresh and new? Dark fantasy, humor, space exploration, time travel, cyberpunk, alternate history, and more. They're in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
Jay's been having to work a lot, so we've had Wild Trees and Bobby Dizzle sit in when he has to work and stuff. And then he had a kidney stone thing. He's got over that. But good to have you here, Wild Trees. Good to have you here, Harold. And what's your Harold? What's your radio show called? And give us some links and stuff so people can look at it.
It's not a radio show. We do online pagan television. It's a television network for the pagan community.
Okay.
And the circle that I'm affiliated with runs a witch magazine, a pagan radio station, and also a pagan television station. So 3 different. I'm the manager for the pagan television station only, and the radio station and the magazine are different folks who facilitate that.
Nice. And so what was the catalyst to get you involved with paganism? I know I have your bio and everything, but what can you tell our audience? What was kind of the catalyst for all that?
I think the catalyst was kind of in my neighborhood in New Hampshire. Growing up, there was a pagan fellow that was in the neighborhood, and he smoked cigarettes and stuff. And I was like young, and like we go to his house, and he was like 19 with his own crib, and I was like think of 13, 14. It was a cool place to smoke cigarettes. It was just like, hey, that's cool. We just went to talking. That was the first time I ever was exposed to paganism. But I really got into paganism in the penitentiary.
So penitentiary as in prison.
As in prison, yes. As in prison, yeah. I'm a reformed prisoner. I did a lot of time in the pen. It was, with the study of occult books, magic, of course, the Wicca stuff, occult, the Crowleys, all that kind of stuff, kind of absorbed all that stuff with ambitions to, try to get out of there, to change my life and change the trajectory where I was ended up. And it worked.
Oh, yeah. Well, how did you read that first book when you were in the pen? Were you at the library? Did they happen to have a book on paganism, the occult? How did you get your hand of that first book?
Yeah, I mean, you probably interesting question. It's real hard to get a hold of some of that stuff. Because of the I guess the Christian rule within the penal institutions in the country. But there are some books that are floating around. At first, the first time I was exposed to it, a fella just walked by my bunk and threw a magazine at me and said, "Hey, man, check this out." And I read it, and I came back, and I was hungry for more. Ended up writing the people that published it, and the rest is history. And it just kind of was a chain of events, from there.
That's awesome. That's really, it's so funny how those origin stories happen. So it was that the other inmate who just threw it on your bed or against you. That's crazy.
Right.
And what was that first book? Was it an introduction to paganism? Was it, what did it talk about exactly?
It was a group of folks from Pennsylvania called the Millennial Kingdom, and they came out with a periodical called Rays of Light, and they're no longer in production anymore. And most pagan magazines don't survive long.
Hmm.
It's not like your Green Egg magazine that's been around for decades. A lot of them fall off, but when it was around, that, you know,
Pretty cool. Pretty
yeah,
cool. I wanted to I wanted to mention something about your bio that I want you to expand on it.
sure,
So I'm gonna try to pull it up, but I'm just gonna loosely quote it. It might take me too long to pull it up on my phone, but mentioned something about the power of music and repetition, maybe like
yes.
repetition magic. Yeah, can you? What is that? That sounds interesting.
I mean, repetitional magic. Well, to begin with that is drumming. Drumming comes back to the primal stages of humanity, where
Hmm.
drumming is like the heartbeat of music. I mean, it really is. It's the first type of music. You got your irks. The Norse were irks. They drum, and with repetition. With chanting. It's a formula that raises power, raises energy. Yeah, repetitional magic. And also, if a musician puts out some music and it's a catchy ballad and it's a catchy phrase, and like the masses just continue to sing along with it, what ends
Yeah.
up what ends up happening is like a form of like collective consciousness is happens, and like the whole like element of what they were talking about can manifest. So if I was having a song about driving in a Mercedes Benz, and I got 10,000 people talking about driving in a Mercedes Benz. It's a good trajectory that one day I will perhaps ride in that Mercedes Benz as repetitional magic, because music is definitely a form of magic.
That's wild. Yeah, no, I totally believe that. To give you a perspective on my thoughts on the paranormal, like, I honestly think that most any topic has elements of truth to it. Paganism, I'm sure, has a lot of truth to it. I'm sure most of it is true. I'm just saying, I think that's true. I think UFOs are true. I think every form of religion and occult practice, demonology, seances, I feel like they all have something true to them. And as a scientist who studies biology, like, I think there's actual science going on there, like the repetition thing. Okay, like that reminds me of a trick I did in college. So let's say I was in college the night before a test, and I couldn't even. I hadn't studied. The typical college student. Well, I would take my notes and I would repeatedly write them over and over again. Repetition. It had to be handwritten, right? I did that all night. That's easy to do. It's a simple task, but that's how I would study. And then the power of the repetition, like I had all that knowledge. I would ace the test, like because I repeated it and I did the physical motion. So that repetition does have power. I mean, that reminds me of it. And then music also, I do see how that has power, like maybe like a meditative power. Because I think a lot of this paranormal stuff breaks down to meditation, concentrating your mind. And then when you concentrate your mind, I think your mind can get to a point where it can alter reality around you. And that's why prayer works. Prayer is like deep meditation that can alter physical reality. I can tell you a quick story about meditation, and we'll go back to paganism. I do want to hear what you have to say about that, Lone Wolf. But another example from my personal life, I recently heard this story. So these two people went to Mexico on a spiritual trip, like a mission trip. Okay, now if anybody knows about Mexico, there's the cities which are generally safe. There's a country which is not safe at all. Okay, this couple was driving from the country area to the city. Okay, they were followed by a big black truck. Okay, I don't want to name them. I don't want to give them power and attract this group. But I think we all know who they are. They're a group of bad people, and they drive large trucks. Okay, and they had bad intentions for these two people. And then another truck showed up, and what they were trying to do, these two bad trucks, one's trying to get in front and one's trying to get in back. Okay, the driver, he's driving like as fast as he can for 40 minutes. He's driving as fast as he can. Dangerous country roads, swerving and whatever. Now, they're both highly religious people. So what they do pretty soon, the man starts praying intently out loud. The woman starts singing intently out loud. The man is praying, God, deliver us from this evil. God, we need your help now. 40 minutes. What happens then? So this is a meditative practice. She's literally singing. She's literally praying. They're deeply doing it. Emotions are high. They're concentrating. 40-minute drive. What happened was a couple of horses were like on the side of the road. They let these people pass, but then the horses got in front of the road. Okay, that stopped the truck, and it gave them enough time to go to the city. And that to me was pretty wild, even if it's just a coincidence. But yeah, those are my thoughts, Lone Wolf, about I guess paganism in a way as well, and meditation. I think concentration changes physical reality in ways.
It's also creative visualization that that popped in my head from shamanism, and I know that's in a lot of different spiritual practices, but that seems similar. When you imagine it repeatedly or try to visualize
Mm-hmm.
it, and then I've had a lot of weird stuff with that happen for sure. Creative visualization, definitely a big one. Uh, so I'm kind of curious when it comes to the paganism community. I mean, the state of the world, does that come up in conversation? I'm sure it does on some level. Like with Christians, it's like, oh, it's the apocalypse, wormwood, da da da, and maybe some Norse Ragnarok. I'm just kind of curious, does it come up? What's going on? Does anyone say like it's a particular age? I mean, what's the consensus? Because I mean, things seem crazy as hell on so many different levels right now. I'm just kind of curious to like, I guess, the perspective from a pagan mind of it all.
Well, from a pagan mind individually, what I encounter a lot is a lot of stuff that happens in politics and modern politics in this country. To me, when it comes to pagan community, it becomes divisive because people who bring in politics and they bring it into a spiritual culture, it becomes divisive. And somebody that deals with pagan media, I'm really not going to lean any towards any political agendas because it takes away from the spirituality and it breaks up the pagan community. It becomes divisive or divides. And I just and who can, I just I just I don't feed into it so much at all.
I don't blame you. I'm at the point of it just like both sides suck, our government sucks, and if you're pro somebody, it's like being pro Jeffrey Dahmer or something with the
Right.
history of our government. It's like, yay, Ted Bundy, you know. So it's just, I'm like, man, just let them get in a cage like Mad Max with chainsaws, right and left leaders, and just do it. We'll do some Mad Max. But
Hey, how
I
bad
would.
do you want it? How bad do you want that power? Get in there with that chainsaw.
I tell you, man, if you get a chance, watch that Twisted Metal. If you want some Mad Max situations, it's
Okay.
based on that game with the cars. It's like Mad Max. It's an old game, but they just did it on Peacock with
Right.
that Will Arnett does Sweet Tooth. Like it's car combat, but it really surprised me. It's getting great reviews. It's fun for sure. I just
Okay.
binged it. 10 episodes, 30 minutes apiece. But it's interesting. I understand what you mean about politics. I try to sway from it. It was funny because there was this right wing show that I've had a couple ask me on, and I just don't feel like doing any appearances, so I don't. Because I mean, I was going through some blood pressure stuff. It seems to be better, but just this is enough for me. But somebody had a right wing politics show, and all this UFO stuff was going on, and I came across it, and they were trying to get me on, but it was called, what was it? The coming conflict. Like now we're getting ready for war. Like the series, the aliens, their shows now, the coming conflict. Trying to get me on. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Things are
But it's
definitely
cool.
changing. Things are definitely changing. I mean, just AI by itself. I started using AI tools, and it is game changing. I mentioned in another podcast. We're at the stage of AI where it's fun. I don't know how long it's going to last. Maybe just a month. I don't know. But we're at the stage of AI where it's fun. We could exploit it for our benefit. It's all giggles. So that's great. I'm glad I get to enjoy this. Maybe some of my grandchildren will enjoy the Skynet version with Terminators, but I'm at the cool version right now, at least for right now.
It's definitely crazy. But I mean, between all the UFO stuff by Congress and Capitol Hill and all that, I didn't watch all of it. Uh, but I've seen a lot of the headlines and stuff. I don't watch news that much. Uh, I'll hear it on my mom's TV when she's watching NBC or something. But basically, it just seems like they're admitting that there's an advanced race here, like some weird Star Trek episode that really controls everything, and we're just like tadpoles or something. It's like they're kind of, it's definitely crazy for sure. The
Well,
level
I
is
would ask
accelerated on
Lone
it.
Wolf. Lone Wolf, let's say that it's true about these UFOs, these claims that we have bodies. How does that fit into paganism? Does paganism already mention this kind of thing happens? Different intelligences.
I don't know if it fits into paganism, but I mean, a lot of people who are into the occult, are already aware of things like Anunnaki. It's like, it's part of the curriculum. The Anunnakis are real, and then and then what about H.P. Lovecraft's aliens? Like that's a whole cult in itself. I mean, I think the government's been prepping us for this alien thing for years. I don't. I think they've just been stringing us along. I look up the sky with all this new technology. I'd swear I've seen aliens too. But it's just tech. But is that the thing though? Is the tech coming from the aliens to begin with? I mean, look how
Right.
fast we got. Look how fast we got George Jetson cell phones. I used to
Yeah.
watch George Jetson as a kid. Like, oh, watch, I can talk to people on a TV while I'm holding. Like that shit was unheard of. It was unheard of, when I was growing up.
Yeah. You make a
Supposedly,
lot of. Oh, go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, supposedly they say all that technology came from the Roswell crash or something. Like there's some serious book by
Right.
Colonel Corso who was at Roswell, and he claims like all this technology. Like there's weird stuff out there just admitting this stuff right in front of our faces. Like if you see that Secret of Skinwalker Ranch show, you'll just like, this is the craziest thing. Like they're saying there's a signal they're picking up at all these ranches that's for space Earth only communication, and they say it's not from a foreign nation, but they're basically alluding that it's from aliens, and it's like it's just crazy. Like it's definitely nuts. They just did a Skinwalker episode on there. I don't know if you've ever seen John Dover. He's this Navajo policeman that's
I've seen it.
they
Yeah.
did they
Heard
did
of
an
them.
unsolved mystery episode. I haven't watched it yet. His whole job is to go and do cases of paranormal stuff. But on this Beyond Skinwalker Ranch show, he knew a lady that was anonymous. She claimed the Skinwalker showed up to her house and scared them so bad that they left the house. So they did on the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch show. They went out there and all kinds of crazy stuff happened. That was
Yeah.
really scary. That whole topic is scary. I don't even like to really talk about it, but I say
Well, that's
S walkers. That does it.
It's just like earlier. Earlier I mentioned a group that's very dangerous. I didn't mention their name. Just like you don't want to mention. I do think, and people in Alaska and other places, they call it the hairy man. They don't give it. They don't call it by its real name. I do think that name thing has something to it. Like the group I was talking about. If I mention their name, it's known for a fact. If you talk about this group and they know you, they hear you say their name, they will find you. They will hurt you. So that's true. I mean, the name thing does have power. That's just interesting because you said S Watson, and I just said this group, and then people
Yeah.
in Alaska just say hairy man.
On
Uh,
that, it's definitely interesting. On that episode, though, the lady said that the phenomenon went away after they went there, and because the phenomenon doesn't want to have the light shined on it or whatever. And the Navajo
oh,
Nation gave her a new house
okay.
because they left that house was trash. But it was interesting. But basically, this dude is a Navajo police, and his whole job is like some crap from the X Files. He has a whole Unsolved Mysteries episode on those new Unsolved Mysteries. I haven't watched it yet, but his name's John Dover, and he's like, natives, they're the real deal with a lot of this stuff. They don't really like to lie, so they like, and they actually had a radio show on that episode in the reservation that asked people to come tell their experiences, and that was a big thing because a lot of them don't like to talk about it because they're afraid it'll give it power, and then a lot of them are coming forward because of that show and talking about it, and they have them on the. There was a guy that came on to the show on the ranch that when he was younger saw a humanoid werewolf type creature and was
Wow.
dead serious native dude, and during that show he got sick. Like a lot of people get sick on the show and they have to take them off the ranch. There's radiation, like high readings. It's weird. It definitely is weird. But when it comes to the paganism, like what are some of the gods and goddesses in the pantheon that are mentioned a lot with all of this? Any of them have StarCraft. But what are a lot of the ones that come up?
I mean, in comparison to what, like aliens, stuff like
Well,
that.
just in general with the occult or worship, or
I mean, it depends on what tradition. I mean, you have different traditions of witchcraft. You have Norse groups. You have different families, groups, groves, covens, and group to group, you have people that utilize different pantheons, from different time periods and geographics around the world.
Wow, it's complex for my brain. It is. Uh, and I like a lot of the Norse stuff. I study it and read a lot of books about it. I have a lot of the cards, and I love some of the music, like Wardruna and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely no expert on it for sure. But I do love it. Well, when it comes to your practice, have you had paranormal stuff happen from some of the stuff that you've done?
Actually, it's interesting. It's interesting you asked me that, and considering that you guys are broadcasting, I think right there in New Orleans, I had a paranormal experience right in New Orleans. Like I was telling you, I'm from New Hampshire, and I had a dream. I had a dream one day that I should go to New Orleans and go to visit Maria Laveau down there in Cemetery 1 on St. Louis. Wow. So I went down there with my 6-string acoustic and played in the quarter during the day. And at nighttime, I camped out right in Cemetery 1. Now, this is before they gated that place up, and now you can't get in without a tour guide. So, yeah, I used to pitch my tent in there at night, every night in Cemetery 1, and used to hide my tent in the tombs. So I went down over there, and so I maintained Maria Laveau's tomb, make sure that it was cleaned up nice. A lot of the tourists put junk and this and that, and and I put the candles nice. I light the candles, adore the spirit of Maria. Maria, I was always intrigued by her, path and her path, her spirituality. So the paranormal experience that I had in Cemetery 1 was I was practicing what is called Enochian magic. Now, Enochian magic was a system of magic from John Dee from England. It's angelic in nature, and I was doing what is called the Enochian calls. And before I got to the Enochian calls, I was doing something called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. Now, I did this in front of the tomb of Marie Laveau. When I was doing the LBRP in front of Maria Laveau's tomb, a brick from the top of her tomb fell off and landed directly in front of me. Once that happened, I booked it to the graveyard, right to the back end of it, where the grass where my tent was, went in my tent and didn't go back until the very next day. Chills down my spine. Probably one of the best, probably the top 3 paranormal things that I've ever had happen. So yeah, there are some serious energies at play in Cemetery 1 on St. Louis down there in New Orleans. Big fan of the place, the location and stuff. So that was probably my one of my favorite epic paranormal experiences. Yeah. Oh, and another thing that has really blown my mind through the years, that I was saying, I was maintaining her tomb. Like, people would put candles and trinkets. She loved lipstick. Cosmetics. People would leave that stuff there. I'd organize it all nice and everything. But I got bit by a hobo spider in front of her tomb. I got bit 3 times on my thumb. Gave me a nasty infection. But here's the thing. My girlfriend, who was a Wiccan at the time, I picked her up in Alabama. The spider bit her in the same spot on her hand. Same spot. What are the chances? Yeah. So because of that, I always say that I was bit by Marie Laveau spiders and stuff. But I have an understanding with her, and I thought maybe I did something wrong, but I don't think that I did. So what I ended up doing is, most people who practice the occult or ceremonial magic or witchcraft, they have something called a Book of Shadows. I had in my possession a Book of Shadows, and which I had a lot of the Enochian magic in. I left my Book of Shadows as an offering at her tomb, just to say, we're cool, right?
Awesome. I love that.
It's cool.
Good offering.
Sure. Definitely. what were some of the other paranormal experiences? Are they ghost type stuff?
Well, the other, I mean, there's a few. There was one where I was researching a lot of stuff with the Golden Dawn magical tradition. And Israel Regardie come out with this book called The Golden Dawn. And it had a lot of the outer court rituals in there. The LBRP, Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Pentagram, Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Hexagram, all these formulas of ceremonial magic, which is like the basis of a lot of occultism today. But I was experimenting with the LBRP, and the LBRP makes you in tune with unseen spiritual things. And as I was doing this, I was seeing large spheres of like light, and what they were astral nasties, just things that were on the astral that's just like trash, garbage. And that was an experience because I thought it was a reflection of light. Was it, what was it, a street light? It wasn't. And that was one thing. Another thing is, as a small child, before I hung out with this pagan chap in my neighborhood, smoked cigarettes. As a child, 4 or 5 years old, I can remember seeing what a lot of people talk about in the media as, and they talk about it a lot on Coast to Coast and stuff. But like the shadow people, like this, right? And it's the best way I can explain it. But I've seen these shadow people, and like as a 4 or 5 year old, it scared the crap out of me, man. I used to hide under tables and stuff, and I really never could really understand that. And I think maybe, as a small child being exposed to those like phantom like type, like, I don't, maybe I was just a little scaredy cat. I don't know. But all I know is I seen these little dark shadows and they scared the crap out of me. Maybe because of those experiences, it is why I do is why I have the path that I have today is maybe because of those experiences. Yeah, but as far as like paranormal stuff, I mean, it's around. People in the witchcraft community, paranormal is not really a go-to word in the witchcraft community. I think that, things that are paranormal or supernatural, I think that they're not so super. I think they're just natural phenomenon. I think that they're just things that just
a spiritual experience. They have a different name for it. I mean, or synchronicity is a big one.
Synchronicities are definitely cool, and I could probably synchronicities are definitely cool.
Yeah, and I was just going to say with the shadow beings and stuff, I've seen those, and from what I've gathered, a lot of them, like I have a lady that's on a lot of shows, and she's helped me clear some things remotely, and she just said there were 2 shadow beings here. And she checked after an oven door blew up. And another house I lived at, a glass blew up. And she removed some things. But one interesting thing that I was going to say is we have a guy, Will Murray, coming on in September. He works at Marvel, and he did a comic called Squirrel Girl. And he does a lot of cool, like John Mars type fiction books and stuff. But he's a remote viewer for the government, and worked on Skinwalker Ranch, and he's coming on in September, and he does clearings like they remotely do it. Like that's a lot for me to understand. To me, you got to have a lot of confidence to do that, remotely clear ghosts from a house. But I know the remote viewing thing is a truth. I mean, there's weird government stuff with that they've, that there were people that worked in the government doing that where they see like far away locations. But from what I see from these shadow beings, what they've told me is a lot of them are kind of parasitical, like feed off maybe negative energy. But I've also heard that it could be things like bleeding through from another dimension. But one of my big experiences, and I've talked about this until I'm blue in the face, is I've seen beings of light, like energy beings, completely sober. I've seen them partying, but I've seen in Florida one day, completely sober, 2 beings of light leave my house and fly into the heavens as if they were in my home, went through the roof into the heavens, and I'll never forget it ever. And I know shamans call them like luminous beings of light and things like that. I've wondered if it's us dead, if that's what we are. But I wonder if the shadow beings are kind of like the opposite polarity of that or something, like the yin yang,
Dark and light.
The light and the dark. but it's definitely interesting. But I've seen the shadow beings too, and it's definitely creepy when you see one. It was just like I saw a dark shadow go down a hall once that appeared to be a humanoid, and I had my father's ashes in a closet, and we ended up piling in a car and going up on a mountain and getting lost, and a Ouija board, this is a long ass time ago, told us the right direction, and we ended up right where me and my dad had been as a kid on Blacktop Mountain in Georgia near Raven Gap, where he went to some military weird school. And we put the ashes out on the mountainside and got on that board, and it spelled out I love you. And we like cried. We were like going around doing all kinds of drugs and stuff, crazy dudes back then in my 20s. But there's something to the shadow and the light for sure. And I don't know, let's say you're doing a spell or a ritual and something happens that can be considered like paranormal. I'm just kind of curious, what terminology would they use for an experience like that besides the word paranormal? Encounter, experience.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, when you say that it was paranormal, I mean, occultically, if you're looking for some kind of interactions with, I mean, if you're drawing upon like ceremonial magic or like, the Goetta or something like that, you're doing it on purpose. You're looking for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good question. I don't
seeking an encounter, pretty much like an encounter, like a spiritual encounter, things like that. So I mean, what are some of the first magic that you did? I remember I haven't done a spell in a very long time, but one of the first spells I ever did was from that Raymond Buckland like big blue book when I was in high school.
Cool.
And these
cool.
Some bully was messing with me, and you had to do some spell with a glass with razors and nails and pee or something in it, and you buried it, and then if someone hurt you, it would, I guess, send it back to them. Mm-hmm. And anyway, that guy was like picking on me like some bully. He's crazy, like had Hitler in his locker and stuff. This is like ninth grade. I ended up meeting him at a construction site, and we beat each other up. And I never got in fights. I should have never went there to meet him. It was really out of character for my nerdiness. But I went there. But anyway, later he ended up at my work asking for forgiveness because his car got in a wreck. He knocked the girl up, went to jail, and he came back to my job and asked forgiveness. And I've always wondered, man, is that from that one spell I did? Is that little weird glass still buried out there behind that building? It's like Stephen King or something. But what were some of the first spells you did back in the day when you were starting?
I'd love to tell you about, my first spell, which took place in, of all places, Salem, Massachusetts. I mean, I'll tell you all about that. But you were talking about Big Blue, which is Raymond Buckland's, the complete book of witchcraft. It's funny you say that. I was just at a cookout in Ohio with the owner of the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft from Ohio, one of Raymond Buckland's priestesses. Her name's Tony Rotunda. So that's cool. You just said that. So yeah,
synchronicity, baby.
Yeah, synchronicity. There it is. But yeah, first spell, man. First spell took place. Actually, I'm lying to you. It wasn't Salem, Massachusetts. It was Beverly, Massachusetts. However, back in the day, Beverly was Salem. They made it smaller. Beverly's just the neck across the bridge, the town over from Salem, Massachusetts. Cool. Anyways, about 15 years ago, there was this girl. We'll say her name was Christy, and she was barren. She wanted to give birth. She couldn't give birth. She wanted to get knocked up. She wanted a kid. And we were going out and stuff, and that was cool. But long story short, we went to the beach in Beverly because there's like a little port where it hooks up to like the ocean or something. So we go on the beach and we made this little fertility bottle spell. We casted circle and everything. We buried it together. We buried it on the beach. What ended up happening was about 2 years later, I get a call and boom, she's got a kid. She's pregnant. She has a child. I mean, that was probably the first time I've seen a positive reaction to a spell. But spells, in those days, I thought spells were something that we did, and that's not the case. Spells, we don't do spells nowadays. Spells, magic and spells and stuff, that's something that kind of we are. We live the magic. We don't do the magic. That's But in the early days, I would do stuff like that, make a bottle, bury it and stuff, and say these words or make a couplet or write something, and read the book and do what the book tells me. But I can't. People shouldn't do spells that other people are writing for them. People got to really do their own spells. Do it from yourself. Emotionally attach your spells, because emotions and spell works go hand in hand. If you can push out tears while you're casting a spell, do it. Way more effective.
Awesome. That's incredible. I had a question for you.
Go ahead.
I had a question for you, Wolf. Going back to your introduction that I was reading earlier, you mentioned something that when you're talking about society and kind of breaking free of domestication, that's something I think about a lot is modern society and the problems we have with it and breaking free from some of the bad habits. What is your views on modern society? And I think you call it domestication in your introduction, or your intro, your bio. Sorry.
Domestication, in what capacity are we talking about domestication? Like, I mean, there's a such thing as like religious domestication. I mean, truth be told, we were all brought up in a Christian country. That becomes a domesticated thing where we're brought up to fear that we're going to hell, and stuff like that. It's a domesticated thing, and that's an actual threshold that a lot of people, that enter the occult or enter the craft, have to walk through that threshold to be undomesticated from those things. To constantly be in fear that we're going to burn in hell and stuff like that. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean, I'm identified as a pagan, on the show here. And one thing that I want to make clear is pagans take responsibility for their actions. We are a responsible culture. Responsibility is key. Where if we mess up, we make it right and we take responsibility for that. Where a lot of the domestication in the country is kind of like, oh, we messed up, but it's okay because because we have a scapegoat God, and not to belittle any particular religious thought or thinking or religious tradition, because all of them are valid to somebody's incarnation where they might be useful for their incarnation, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that pagans are a responsible bunch, and to undomesticate is important. Domestication in saying that we can't do something like, I guess what I was saying in the bio maybe was limiting beliefs, like limiting yourselves. I mean, sky's the limit, man. I mean, in my particular case, I came from the ashes. Ex-convict, rabid alcoholic, sleeping in graveyards with Marie Laveau. Today, a different story. Now I'm award-winning pagan musician, program manager for a pagan television station. I'm an entry-level priest within a Kemetic temple. I mean, the sky's the limit. Limiting beliefs, domestication. There's blockages out there, and my best advice, I guess, don't be domesticated. Don't be sheep. We're not sheepish. The best advice God give to humanity is don't be sheep. Don't be a sheep. Be a bear. Be a wolf. Trek your own path. Why follow everybody else?
Very true. Yeah, I see a lot of opportunity in being different. When I see just specifically a business opportunity or a research opportunity, I always see opportunity in just being different, just thinking something new. Like everybody's thinking this way, everybody's doing that. I'm not going to do any of that. Let's think of something different.
Right.
It helps you stand out and it helps you be successful in a lot of areas, I think.
Right. Pioneer something. Do something somebody ain't done yet.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that if you have a really good new pioneering idea, product, whatever, it's going to have some feedback in the beginning. Definitely, like you're going to have some negative attention, but you're going to have a lot of people that like it, and then in time, I think it'll catch on. That's
Mhm.
just the way new ideas are. It's very interesting.
People are going to like it, and people are not going to like it. And let me tell you something, Wild Trees. If they don't like it, then you must be doing something right. Because if they don't like it, that means they're shooting at you. Because yeah, so it's haters are good, man. We like the haters.
Well, it reminds me of something I just recently I read somewhere about YouTube in general. It's like once you start getting a lot of negative comments on your videos, that's
Mhm.
good. That means that more people are watching you than your normal crowd that all love you. You know, like it
Mhm.
means you're growing and you're getting more eyes on you. That's a
Right.
good sign. Yeah,
There's an old saying. I think it goes any publicity is good publicity.
yeah, that's good.
You know.
That's good. That just
So,
reminds. Go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead, Jeremy.
oh, I was just going to ask about like
Okay,
animals and
sure.
stuff. That's a big part of it, right? Animal spirits, like shamanism, animal
Yeah,
medicine.
absolutely, man. I mean, animism. I mean, when you talk about witchcraft, when you talk about paganism, and you talk about religion as a whole, the first religion on this planet was animism. It was
Hmm.
the first. You know, the cave paintings when they paint the deer on the wall and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
every major religious system out here on the planet has elements of animism within it. Even the Christians have the elements of animism within their religion. You look at Egyptology. You have wolf-headed deities. You have cow-headed deities. You have falcon-headed deities. I mean, those were elements of the first animistic traits within the religions itself. So animism is the first type of paganism, and when I talk to a lot of people in the craft community, in the witchcraft communities about the origins of witchcraft, it comes from it comes from the indigenous tribes on the planet, like your Incas, your Aborigines, your Native Americans. All of these different tribes infuse themselves with animism. And I know that Jeff was saying that he's like a fan of the Norse. The Norse were big fans of animism. How many? I mean, and not to bring Hollywood into it, but how many times have we seen Hollywood movies when the Viking warrior infuses the wolf and he just rips his enemies apart? Those were like the war cries. They infused themselves with a lot of mushrooms, probably, but like became a wolf and just ripped their enemies apart, man. So yeah, animism is definitely a component to modern day witchcraft, and it's the root. It is the origins of paganism and the origins of all religions on the planet.
Very nice.
The shape shifting come up? That's when you take on the spirit and like you can wear different things and things like that?
Shapeshifters are cool, and Hollywood messes that up because they have all these effects and they turn into like a wolf and stuff, and
Right.
that's not really what's going on. There are modern day shapeshifters, and I just came back from a major festival, not a pagan festival, but a lot of pagans go to it. It's in Ohio. It's called Starwood. And at Starwood, there's a brilliant author, and he goes by the name of Denny Sargent. And I've talked to him.
I know him. He's been
Okay,
on.
Denny Sargent, that is the definition of a modern shapeshifter. Now, I literally was at Starwood. Him and his pack were walking by all on fours. You could hear them all night, man. They were doing it up. Modern day shapeshifters, and what they're doing is it's like a trance, man. They go into trance with it, and it makes them feel good, and it becomes an alternative state of consciousness, man. And that's their magic. So yeah, modern day shapeshifters, they exist, and I think that the historical shapeshifters, I think it boils down to ingestion of ayahuasca or some strange mushrooms, and there they go, howling at the moon all on fours. And I think that a lot of the old school pagan warriors kind of did the same thing, where they would shapeshift mentally into a wild beast to conquer their enemies.
I had Denny on for his last book, Werewolf Magic.
Yep, great
That
book.
was this year. Yeah, that was a good one. I definitely need to get him on again. They basically get out in the woods and go crazy. And I was thinking of that Northman movie. That was a pretty decent, weird Norse watch. The Northman. Did you get to see that one, Harold the
Oh yeah,
Northman?
oh yeah.
I figured as much. But yeah, that was definitely good. What's creepy though with this Navajo situation, and this is definitely an evil side, dark side to this kind of stuff. The legend is that you're supposed to kill someone that's in your family that you love. Don't recommend doing that unless you want to be damned for eternity, by the way. But apparently, they say once you do that, you go off with these. They're like shapeshifters, but they are evil, obviously. But when they run, they sound like horses, and they wear like one had a horse head, a deer head, one had antlers, and
Yeah.
that you go off with them and you gain powers and you just don't come back. It's creepy, and they're dead serious about it. Like the rational brain's like just trying to wrap around it, but there's something to it. It's definitely the dark side. I prefer the positive shamanic side to all this, of course, but that was a whole episode that was just on Beyond Skinwalker. But it's definitely fascinating, and I've heard about the Norse berserker like rages being from was it mushrooms or definitely some kind of psychedelic that they took. There's some connection to that for sure.
It's funny that ritual you said. I thought it was always funny that the it's not worth it. Like, okay, so you have to kill a loved one, and what do you get? You get to turn into an animal. Like, I need that's not enough.
Sounds
That's
crazy. And
that's
then if
not
you
enough.
yeah, and then if you get caught, and go to the slammer or whatever. I mean, do you still become one? No, probably not. You just become like an old serial killer that gets a book deal or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. It's crazy.
I'm
It's
sure I'm
just,
missing some part of it. I'm missing some part of the story that makes it more
stay away
interesting.
from it. We shouldn't be talking about it. But here's what's creepy too. That book Hunt for the Skinwalker. They released a sequel to it, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, and it's about military personnel having phenomenon follow them home from that ranch, and they felt like their children were in danger. So there's definitely
I
something.
I saw an interesting perspective on what was going there. That's called the hitchhiker effect. And there's this guy. He's a PhD. I think he's a sociologist. His name is Simeon Hein on YouTube. Simeon, last name Hein. Simeon Hein. He's a really cool video. He had an interesting perspective on the hitchhiker effect. He thought it wasn't necessarily that something was following you. So what the hitchhiker effect is you go to Skinwalker Ranch. It's been reported that if you go to Skinwalker Ranch and wait, what happened was that when they were studying Skinwalker Ranch, they hired a bunch of military people. So these were men and women, I guess. They were like very aggressive, past military security. They had guns. These are the type of people that have experienced the Skinwalker effect. These tough-looking individuals. They would be targeted when they were in Skinwalker Ranch, which is in Utah in the Uinta Basin. They would be targeted by the paranormal activity. Okay, they had incredible experiences. Then they would go home in another state, and then their family would see dog-headed creatures or paranormal stuff called the hitchhiker effect. Now, Simeon Hines said maybe it's not something following you from Skinwalker Ranch. Maybe it's your perception being altered so that you're just seeing things that have always been there. So that weird creature, that weird paranormal stuff that's happening at your house, it was always there. It's just that you came back a changed person. That's what his idea was. It's just a different way of looking at the problem.
I've noticed when I've read books about that kind of stuff or watched those particular shows, and that's the only shows I really watch is Expedition Bigfoot and this Skinwalker stuff, because most of the shows are crap, so I don't really watch a lot of them. But those particular ones, I think they're better than the ones I've seen before. There's also one called on Paranormal Caught on Camera or something that's pretty interesting. I don't know how much of that stuff's real or not, but they just show footage all the time. But I've had stuff happen after watching stuff like that. It's like it opens you up to it or something.
Okay.
And you attract it and things like that.
Well, look, I know this is like something. This is something that's out there. I'm not saying it's true, but a lot of I'll say Mexican religious circles. So a lot of Mexicans are Catholic. A lot of Mexicans now in Texas at least are Baptist. But anyway, growing up, you would hear this a lot. And I'm not saying it's true, but they would say, don't even start studying the occult. Don't even start reading about the occult or paganism, etc., because that's enough for it to start messing up your life. It's just kind of like what you said, Jeremy. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's just a common thing that's said among certain Christians in America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Crap, man, crap. Can I elaborate with that?
yeah. Go
Sure,
ahead.
of course.
I mean, I'm completely against that. If it had not been for witchcraft, I would still be in a penitentiary right now. That's the honest truth, and and the reason why is because there's a brilliant witch from across the pond, and her name was Doreen Valiente, and she wrote a poem called "The Charge of the Goddess," and within this poem is an excerpt that says, "Forever reach your highest ideals." Okay, reaching your highest ideals, which is basically an excerpt saying, be your best self, be the best version of you.
Mm.
And it took an Alexandrian priest to tell me this and all this stuff. But by the writing of this one witch, Doreen Valiente, it changed the trajectory of my life forever. Okay, a witch. Um, because of that writing, now I'm no longer suffering in recidivism. I'm no longer suffering in alcoholism. You know, I might smoke a little weed at a pagan gathering, but I don't have problems.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and let's be real. Marijuana and stuff like that is socially acceptable within the pagan community. It's a plant. It's socially and it's socially acceptable in the United States too. We've seen that. With the rise, from back in the day. But yeah, truth be told, witchcraft changed my life. It didn't set me back. It made me better. I mean, it's not for everybody, and I think that's part of the domestication that we're dealing with because the people, some people in different religions don't want you to veer off. They want you to stay in their control because they want you to be controlled. Okay, and the, within the craft structure, we question all authority, and we won't be controlled because we're not sheep. So the craft can work for people, but you really have to have an open mind. And as my spiritual mother often says, keep an open mind, but not so much that your brains fall out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Is
very cool. Yeah.
is shamanism and witchcraft kind of similar in a lot of ways? I mean, what are some differences? Are they kind of similar? I mean, it's like an herbal healer, right? I mean, I know there's different complexities to it, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, shamanism, yeah, they do go hand in hand. There's a really cool witch that lives in Wisconsin by the name of Selena Fox. She does this big nature reserve called Circle Sanctuary. She's done a lot of things, in the States for like, she made the first grave markers for military to have pentagrams on their tomb for like these military guys, were dying in wars. They wanted a pentagram on their tomb and be adorned by the military. She made all that happen. She's a great priestess and stuff. And the reason why I bring her up is because she's into what is called, probably contemporary Wicca, but it's with the shamanistic flavoring. It's like shamanistic Wicca. So yeah, shamanism and Wicca do go hand in hand. But and I think I'm not really sure of the definite. I'd have to look. I'd have to Google that stuff, man. Shamanism. I mean, I'm not a brains. I don't know everything. I come with flaws too. I think.
I found her on Google,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Do share.
and definitely. I've had a lot of the Norse, like Evelyn Rysak. She's got a lot of a Norse shamanism book.
Right.
It's definitely fascinating when you intermingle those. Does Norse play a part in any of your path or belief system?
Well, to be honest, I'm 7% Norwegian. I did my DNA, and doing your DNA in my family is part of the it's part of the path. It's just something that you do. So it does play a part because you know, I am Norse, 7%. You know,
Me
it's not
too.
really
I
that
am
much.
too.
But I mean, there was a time where, you know, it doesn't play into my path. I mean, I don't walk that particular path. I have a lot of friends that are Norse. Um, my favorite pagan text are the Havamel, which is in Norse text, which is basically a text, a pagan text that was like transcribed from like Christian monks and stuff,
I got
you
it.
know. But I mean, they're around when you start living the pagan life, the pagan community, because I really distant myself from like modern society, like going downtown, go to a bar, shoot the pool. Like I don't have a normal life like that. I don't affiliate with anybody but pagans. You know what I mean? I have displaced myself from society, and I don't know if that's part of my coping mechanism. That helped me combat the recidivism and alcoholism that I was telling you about. But this is what's worked for me so far. I guess it's my own enchantment or whatever. Uh, yeah, I forget where I was going with that, but
And yeah, I looked her up. I'll check that out for sure. And she has like a sanctuary. You said right, like a nature preserve or
yes,
something.
yeah,
Cool, cool.
yeah. She has a beautiful sanctuary. A lot of the pagan musicians go out there to a thing called Pagan Spirit Gathering, and they jam out every year. It's a big festival that they have out there. Um, I've never been to that one particularly. Um, But yeah, she does. But she does some. Well, I know in her earlier days, because she's been around for decades and decades. I mean, it was public knowledge that she was into shamanistic Wicca. Um, but yeah, you're right. For some reason, the Norse and shamanism kind of go hand in hand. But I mean, a shaman can come from any indigenous tribe, because you have Native Americans that are shamans too. I mean, I would assume, but I think with the Native Americans, I think they called them medicine men.
Yeah, they don't. Some of them don't like to say that.
Right. And if I did that to offend anybody, I apologize. It's not intentional.
Some do, some don't. And it
Right.
just
And it's
depends.
it's not intentional. I mean, I
What
have
about I'm sorry, I was just asking, what about Santeria, Lone Wolf? You know anything about that?
reminds me of Sublime, dude. I don't practice Santeria. I ain't got a little crystal
You do the
ball.
voodoo. You do the
Yes,
voodoo.
Santeria. I don't have much. I'm not in contact with so much Santeria, although I am in contact with a voodoo practitioner that just recently started a show on our pagan television network.
Okay.
Uh, but you know, I don't know. I don't know if Santeria and voodoo go hand in hand or not. I'm not really sure.
Well, I was gonna say today I went to a store. It was like a Cuban store about Santeria,
Cool,
and I got some stuff. Like I got this necklace, okay,
nice.
and this is for health. And she told me I could keep it on all times except for sex. If I wear it during sex, it'll remove the power. Said I could re-energize the power with coconut water or something else. I don't remember. And then I wrote down here on the card. I told her I was like, "What are the terms? What are you doing?" So the name of the necklace. This is Spanish. It's Cuban. Cuban essentially is called Obatala. Obatala is this. And she put some stuff on it as well called Caceria. Caceria and Humero. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I'm going to try it.
You
The,
say
the
you're
other thing
supposed
was
to
really,
wear it during sex. Is that what you just
no,
said?
don't wear
Don't
it during
wear
sex
it. Okay.
because
Or
it'll
you'll
remove
make
the power.
gremlins. Don't feed them after midnight.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Another weird thing, not weird, I'm sorry, this is weird. Another interesting thing was when I was in their beautiful store, there was a picture of these two little rats, right? And it said the name, I think I have it on my phone, two little rats, and it said a pair of these rats in Spanish, $1,200. And so I was like, what's up with these little rats? Why are they $1,200? So it's a rodent, it's a large rodent that's it's from Cuba, probably other places. It looks like it's related to the capybara or the nutria.
Okay.
Uh, and basically, she said, this is my problem, not her problem, but I had a hard time understanding her accent because she's Cuban. I speak Spanish. but it's my issue, not her issue. But I was like, well, so what's going on? She's like, apparently there's some Santeria you would do with these rats, and what I did get is that one, it always has to be two, and one of them always has to be released into nature. And I'm not sure what happens with the other one. I just thought it was interesting. And she was like, yeah, they're super hard to find. That's why they're $1,200. But that's, I don't know. Does that count as animism? It has to do with animals, or does that not fit the description?
Nice.
Doing,
What have you been doing animal microbiology wise? Just off the cuff, real quick. Anything been coming up big on that?
yeah, I've been looking at some water bears that I collected in Colorado along some mountain valleys, three parallel valleys in western Colorado.
So
And
you
what
have
I'm doing,
tardigrades. The tardigrade things. You have some.
oh yeah, dude, they're coming out of my ears. Well, the funny thing about tardigrades is that wherever you guys are right now, you're probably within, I don't know, let's be generous, within 100 feet of you, there's probably hundreds of water bears. They live all over the world, and Antarctica included.
Where are you
So
keeping them at? Like in an aquarium or something?
no, so that's funny. They actually, so you're right. Tardigrades are actually water animals. They're just as aquatic as a fish. So in order to move around, in order to breathe, in order to reproduce, to eat, they have to be completely surrounded in water. But they have an alternate stage where they make a glass cocoon. A glass cocoon they make themselves. When they're in that cocoon, it's called a tun, Tun, and that cocoon is what makes them impervious to damage. That's what that cocoon lets them live for we don't know how long, maybe decades in the suspended animation, without oxygen, in extreme heat, extreme pressure, in the vacuum of space, extreme cold temperatures. It's funny because people say tardigrades are like the strongest, toughest animals on Earth, but it's like a dualism because yes, they are, but at the same time, they're also the weakest animals on the planet because when they're not in the ton, when they're just swimming around, they're just like little gummy bears. You can do whatever you want to them. You can kill them so easily. You know what I mean? It's only
Like
when
bears.
they're like little gummy bears. Gee, they're not tough at all. I mean,
You know
you
what
can do
those
whatever.
are, right, Harold? Those water bear things, tardigrades, those little weird creatures he's talking about. He has some in his house. You ever seen them? They're called a water bear,
Okay.
tardigrade. Like it's a crazy, weird animal that's like indestructible. That's just weird looking, like very bizarre. But basically, Dr. Frankenstein over here with his tardigrade experiments. But I just had to get on that cuff for a minute. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Harold, what are some of the deities that you invoke or that you do stuff with? I'm
Well,
trying to find the right word.
in my early years, a lot. I mean, I started off with digging down into ceremonial magic and Wicca. In my early years, uh, I used to be working with Pan, a god named Pan.
Nice,
I
nice.
resonated with Pan because, well, Pan, he likes sex, he loves to drink,
I'm a
and I was an
Capricorn.
alcoholic, and he was a nature deity. So and a god of music, and I play guitar and I do pagan hip hop stuff. So I was cool with it. Um, and I worked with another deity called Diana because it was just like the go-to moon goddess, and that was kind of my early years. And that kind of changed throughout, as the years went by. And then I got into another a Greek deity who I had no idea that I was, you know, had ancestry of the Greeks. Um, Apollo is another one, and Apollo is a wolf god um, who is associated with music as well and archery. But in current times, I'm diving deep into Egyptology with the wolf deities within that pantheon. And as I evolve with my own craft, when you talk about gods and goddesses and pantheons and different uh, types of deity, um, they all share the same energies, archetypical energies. Okay, and the best way to explain that is um, when you take a deity like Thoth, and then you take a deity like Hermes, they are the same archetypical energy. If you take a deity like um, Lu, and Jesus Christ, they're both a sun god. You know, even when you compare it, you can even compare it to Egyptology and Christianity. Well, Catholicism. When you talk about Mary, and you talk about Isis, it's the archetypical mother goddess energy. You know, and in some ways, I like the Catholics because they never let go of the feminine qualities of divinity through Mary. They kept it alive. And we all know that, well, Judaic and Catholicism, Christianity has pagan DNA to begin with. So it's just one of the things that I refuse to let go. But as far as deity goes, for deities that I work with individually, right now I'm working with a deity called Weebawet, who is not Anubis in the Egyptian pantheon, but kind of like um, a sibling with it's a white-headed wolf. Um, Archetype. Um, and I'm not really sure why I'm drawn to that. I mean, it's a long story of why I'm, because a lot of people in the craft have like their favorite animal. You know, you talk about animism and stuff like that earlier. I think that everybody kind of resonates with one animal. You know, like who's your favorite animal? You know, they got the pictures on their wall, or people just like, some people like cats, some people like dogs. You know, some people are like got bearded dragons, or miniature pigs, or or water bears.
I'm looking
Water
up.
bears.
You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I'm more into archetypical deities, not necessarily specific gods and goddesses, but the archetypical current of the god itself. Because here's a question that I ask a lot of people within my community, and a lot of these people are adepts in magic. And what I ask them is, who created the gods? Did we create the gods, or did the gods create us? And it's such a paradox question that it can't be answered. And I think some questions just can't never be answered.
Definitely. And I notice it has the dog head. And I know in paranormal a lot, this dogman phenomenon is coming up, which has kind of been around for a while with kind of werewolf, beast of Bray Road. There's a lady who passed not too long ago, Linda Godfrey, who spent her whole life researching these type encounters. Somewhere there's a town where the sheriff wasn't, I guess they weren't taking it serious at first, but then they got so many, they kept it in a box in the town. Now the town's like known for everybody having these weird dogman werewolf sightings. But another fascinating thing, there's just a documentary, it's on Tubi, it's by Small Town Monsters, and basically Small Town Monsters makes these paranormal documentaries about towns that have crazy phenomenon happen. Like, let's say Bogey Creek or Willow, I don't know, they haven't done a Willow Creek, but there's a lot of weird towns that have had a crazy ass paranormal thing happen, like Mothman. Now they have parades and the burger special and the 2-for-1 tire special, the Lizard Man special. But anyway, they make documentaries about these towns, and they just did one. It's on Tubi called the Dogman Triangle, and basically it's about people having a werewolf sighting, and they go interview like these serious like country ass farmers who, don't go out there. There's packs of them, and they're dead serious. And like the police have been involved in stuff. I don't know, maybe they're all nuts, but I think there's something to it. Because when you look at these Egyptian gods, like the ones we were just mentioned, that they have animal dog heads. Who's to say there's not races of these things? It's crazy, but they also fight Sasquatch, by the way. And Sasquatch rides dinosaurs in the Hollow Earth. But anyway. But we had a dude on, Sunbow True Brother, and Sasquatch Message to Humanity. Really cool dude up in Quebec that has studied with shamans all over the earth and tripped with them, and he has books about it, and he wrote all these Bigfoot books. But he said there's a bunch of alien races here, and some of them are good that help us. Some of them have gone rogue, cyborg, AI, and are like robot, like. Just the way he described it was bone chilling. Like it was definitely.
Well, it's funny because when you listen to alien accounts, people seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Fourth Kind, or whatever. There's always the Greys. That's the most popular. Then there's like some reptilians, mantids. But there's always this other, and there's human-like Nordic, but there's the other category that's just random one-off. They're just like you never see them again, like the Calvin Parker Pascagoula robots with like carrots sticking out of their head. You see all these weird, like the Hopkinsville goblins. So that to me tells me that there's probably a whole lot of different types out there. There's some that are more common, and then there's the types that are very uncommon. Something you said earlier too, Lone Wolf, you're talking about how it could be that this alien technology is right in front of us, like cell phones, the George Jetson style cell phones we finally got. So it could be that the aliens, the technology, it's been right in front of our noses. It could literally right now we could be looking at it. But the other idea that is interesting to me is that the aliens could be even closer than that because I guess this has to do with the Anunnaki, but the idea is out there as well that we are products of manipulation from some group of aliens. And they use some of their DNA on us. If that's true, then just look at a mirror. You know, the aliens are right here. We have their DNA. And that could be very useful to understand them better because if we understand ourselves better and we're part of them, then we can understand them better.
Mhm.
And I know also with Aleister Crowley and stuff, that weird lamb story is pretty weird. That was kind
Lamb
of
story?
weird, where he
Yeah.
invoked some kind of being that kind of looked like a gray or something. There's some weird picture on Facebook. Someone put that creature on their truck, and it said, "Have you been washed in the blood of the Lamb?" LAM. It's like, kind of creepy, but neat at the same time. But I know Crowley's pretty controversial. But I know one thing. I want to see that Oppenheimer movie. I haven't seen it. I don't really care about Barbie, but that movie seems like it's going to be pretty scary. It's about the atom bomb and by Christopher Nolan. So that's and that guy's a good actor from Peaky Blinders, Cillian Murphy or whatever. But I want to see that. But one
I
thing,
saw it.
oh, go ahead.
I saw it, but it's a funny story. Like this is a anti-review. Don't listen to anything I say about the movie because it's not a good review. But like, I went to the movie theaters early. I listening. There was three movies. I was like, let me watch Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. Saw it. I was like, let me watch Barbie. Saw it. Then I was like, let me watch Oppenheimer. And the only like, okay, I bought tickets, but somebody else was there, and it was technically like a handicap assistance space, so I wasn't gonna say anything. So I had to sit two rows from the front. All right. I had already been at the movie theater for like it was an IMAX screen, and I was like two rows from the front, and I had already been at the movie theater for like 5 hours.
You saw like three movies earlier today.
And I fell asleep. But that's not a review of the movie. That's because I was tired and I was two rows from an IMAX. I needed to be watching bed, fully conscious. But I did wake up. I was like, whoa! I woke up during the scene with the
Bomb went off.
yeah. I was like, all right. And honestly, I'll be fair. Like toward the last 20 minutes, I just walked out. I was like, how much time? We'll just keep talking. This is not a review of the movie. Okay, do not listen to what I'm saying.
I understand. I fell asleep during good movies before. It happens.
Yeah.
Watch it.
I tried to do something, but I didn't.
Yeah,
I
you just watch
wasn't
it.
able to pull it
So,
off.
I don't want to get into this too much, but how was Barbie? Did you like Barbie?
Oh, I want to get into it a lot. Like, I love Barbie as a biologist. I actually have a really interesting perspective on it.
Yeah.
To me, it has a lot to do with this concept in biology called sexual dimorphism. Uh, it basically means that males and females look differently on the outside, but it goes deeper than that. I mean, you see certain tropical birds. The birds are really, flamboyant. The females are maybe more dull colored. In some species, the female's really large, the male's larger. Well, there's a lot of sexual dimorphism in a lot of species. In humans, we have our own sexual dimorphism. And to me, like the Barbie movie, it was about this. It was the species of Homo sapiens making a movie about their own sexual dimorphism because it really was all about like how the species views the different sexes. That's what I took out of it. It was really cool
You
to
done
look at that.
So you done went over the scientist, the wild end with that one.
Yeah.
But so Harold, I know you're a musician. What kind of music do you play, and what were some of your influences to that?
I mean, my influences for music are all over the place, man. I grew up with Guns N' Roses, man, and like Alice in Chains and stuff like that.
Me too.
I mean, I even like Tom Petty and Bob Seger. Like I'm all over the road, man, with that stuff. I mean, you're talking to a guy who bumped Tupac Shakur too. I mean, it's off the chain. I as a musician, I had good stuff with music last year. I took home an award from something called the International Pagan Music Association. I won an award last year. You know, uh, I'll show you the thing. It's huge, man. It's huge. Big award for it. You
Quartz.
know, it's like some, you know, for, and I took this home basically for pagan hip hop, where I'd get up on there and I'd basically be, hip hopping, but I didn't call it hip hop. I called it witch hop. And with
Oh,
this
nice.
And with this witch hop, basically, I'd be rapping, why it's cool to, why is it cool to be a witch, basically, and I just talk about the different things that I'm learning and everything. But at the same time, I can jam on that 6-string guitar too, so I do that too. And I put like djembes with it, flutes, and like shamanistic shakers, and, and do that. And, and my music stuff's pretty cool. I got to play at this big festival called Starwood. The IPMA put me on stage recently. Sometimes I go down to North Carolina, jam out for, $300-400, go to Florida, kind of slow going, but I'm getting ready to cut like an acoustic album because truth be told, I'm 40 years old, hip hop's cool and everything, but I'm getting older. So it's time to lay back, smoke a J, strum on some guitars,
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where that's headed. But yeah, that's kind of where it's headed with music. Yeah.
I grew up.
What can we
I'll
what
go
can we
ahead.
listen to your music? I was just curious. Where can people listen to it?
I mean, you could just Google my full name comes in. I'm on all the iTunes, the Spotify's, the Pandoras, anything YouTube. It's all over the place. You know,
Perfect.
a lot of my exposure comes from like something called pagan radio stations. They have a few pagan radio stations. One's broadcasts out of North Carolina and also Canada, called International Pagan Radio, and there's another one that broadcasts out of Kentucky called the Cauldron Radio, and they support a lot of pagan musicians, and so I'm often played on their sites and also the pagan television networks and stuff like that.
Cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
if you just type in the Harold Sanford Carter III, my music's gonna pop up all over the place. I'll either be witch hopping or playing a guitar, or at one time they was calling me the pagan Kid Rock dude, which is fine. My father was born from Detroit, but I wasn't. So I guess I'm just a country kid from New Hampshire. That's where I grew up. But I never did go back to New Hampshire after 17 though.
Yeah.
I was too busy sleeping in graveyards in NOLA.
Just for you seem cooler than Kid Rock. Like I used to like Kid Rock, but I see him lately. I'm like, ugh, the political stuff with ugh.
Yeah. Oh
But,
yeah.
you seem cooler than Kid Rock.
Yeah.
I like bands that have unique voices. Alice in Chains,
Yeah.
Nirvana. I grew up with
man.
Guns N' Roses. Typo Negative.
Yeah. That's cool.
Cool. Like I like that stuff where they're screaming and stuff. It's okay, but I don't really like a lot of it. Where
Right.
you can't I don't know what the hell you're saying. I like melodic stuff that's good. I need to know what they're understand it. And a lot of it, my sister likes some, and it's like blah, 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 blah. Like what are they even saying? I mean, it sounds kind of cool, but after a while, it gives you a headache. But I like the Alice in Chains. That's creepy how they got that singer now. That's kind of a lot similar, not
Right.
exactly, but kind of haunting a little bit. How those bands do that when one of them drops dead and they get a replacement, like with AC/DC and stuff. It gets weird where they get that. It's like almost paranormal in itself. But I like that Who band. I know the new Alice in Chains guy did a song with them recently, that Mongolian, kind of like shamanic. That's really cool. Wardruna, I love that. That Heilung, am I saying that right? I watched their concert on YouTube. That was crazy. Heilung, am I saying that correctly? Heilung. That's kind of paganistic, right? I mean, that's Norse, but that I saw them in concert on YouTube. That's some crazy shit. That was good though. It'll take you on a journey, buddy. Felt like I was tripping. but definitely. What are some of the bands that you listen to like that now, though? Maybe I can get some find some. And I'll definitely listen to yours too.
The bands I like now, inspiration wise, they got the guy in what's called the Druids, like a Druid. And there's an order of Druids across the pond called the OBOAD. Don't ask me what that stands for. I'd have to Google it. I can't remember. But I remember OBOAD. And there's a fellow by the name of Dom the Bard. And his real name's Dave Smith. And some people call him Darv the Bard or Dom the Bard. But he just won like this really cool award from a couple of radio stations. And like he's like a real modern bard, man. He's just like, it's kind of folky and stuff, but it's like I'm really into his music a lot. I'm really into pagan music right now. I mean, there was a time where I liked the mainstream stuff, but I do put on the Godsmack and that album Dirt all the time. Alice in Chains and stuff. But I like Dom the Bard.
Found his size. Yeah, I think that's the size.
There's a few pagan musicians that I like now. I like there's one called Nordic Daughter. There's Brian Hinkey I like a lot. Yeah, I've always been a fan of Godsmack too, because I mean Godsmack solely from
voice, yeah,
solely from Godsmack is a Wiccan, and he was involved with Laurie Cabot's family in Salem, I believe, and stuff. Well, I don't know if that's factual, but I do know that she was in his music video Voodoo, that Voodoo song he does. I'm not the one who he.
Oh yeah,
so he was in that one and stuff. But yeah, I'm into pagan music, man. Yeah, I just, I'm pagan crazy. It's just, I really am. I'm pagan crazy. I'm witchcraft crazy. If it's not occultic, I really don't touch it. I don't read books. I read occult books.
Is there a way for someone to incorporate some pagan witchcraft without, let's say, you don't necessarily want to become pagan, but you want to learn and incorporate some of that? Is that recommended? How would you do that if you recommend it?
I guess. If you wanted to, you could study anything you'd want. It's recommended you study as much as you can. Smart people are cool people, the best place to learn the craft or witchcraft or paganism and stuff. The go-to thing to do is you can basically just Google that stuff nowadays. There's so much information out there. But the problem with that is with stuff like this misinformation as well, on the internet, because a lot of these traditional families, that have been word of mouth through centuries and centuries and stuff, that stuff's getting watered down because people just pop up now and say, I'm a witch. We got like 50 million TikTok witches now, man. Like there's like 50 million TikTok witches, that it's just, it's crazy, and there's a lot of watered down stuff. Even with the authors, I feel like it's repetitive stuff that's been released.
So maybe some of the older literature, like going back a few decades, reading some of that primary books literature would be better, less diluted, like you said.
Yeah, if you, it depends on what kind of paganism, because paganism is like a big umbrella term. Paganism encompasses the Norse traditions. It encompasses Wicca. It even encompasses indigenous tribe customs and cultures and stuff. It's a big umbrella term. Druids, it's paganism, encompasses that. Go-to places. It depends on what kind of paganism that you're into. If you just want to kind of just brush up on some pagan stuff. Whoa! Man. Jeff mentioned a really good book. If you're into witchcraft, Jeff mentioned a go-to book earlier in the show, man. The Blue Book, Raymond Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft. You can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with that book. It's the go-to. A lot of the newbies in the craft go right to it. You can't go wrong. It's a good book. It's a real go-to book. A lot of people go to Scott Cunningham's Solitary Wicca, stuff like that. Those are kind of one-on-one stuff. But if you really want to get to the meat of all that, the witchcraft stuff, you got to get into stuff like Cornelius Agrippa. You got to get into stuff like the Kabbalion. the Emerald Tablet, stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool.
It's
And
interesting.
really, if people are looking for a teacher, if you're looking for a teacher out there in the craft, just keep in mind that there ain't no better teacher than Mother Nature. Okay, because all these teachers, they might lie to you, but Mother Nature ain't never gonna lie to us ever. Best teacher is Mother Nature. That is the best.
Amen. I could agree to that. It's
Yes.
funny. I tell people sometimes I go to talk to schools about nature, high schools, and I tell them about why it's cool to go to nature. I'm like, why is it cool in nature? I'm like, look, dude, if you go walking in nature, you will see things you've never seen. You'll hear things you've never seen. You'll think things you've never thought.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like that's why I go in nature. That all that stuff happens. There's a lot of information, truth, and knowledge just from being in nature, Mother Nature. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with nature. Nature ain't gonna lie to me. You know, it's not. From a pagan to a biologist, man, nature doesn't lie to us. That's why nature rules. Yeah,
It's true. It's
yeah.
very true. I talked about earlier about how I mean the Earth is so powerful. Like probably I thought about it. The Earth is probably a superorganism. The planet itself is alive.
Yeah.
We are just like its cells. Our bodies are made of trillions of individual living cells. Probably the way the Earth works. But the other thing is the Earth is so powerful. People don't realize it. Like everybody talks about. Maybe you don't hear it so often now, but people used to say, "Save the planet." We got to save the planet. Dude, don't worry about the planet. The planet is going to be fine. There's
Mhm.
been several mass extinctions. The
Right.
phrase should be save the humans. Because if we become extinct, it's going to be the best thing for the planet. If all the animals, this has happened before, like 99% of all the life on this planet has died multiple times. One time's an accident, twice is a coincidence, three, four times. I think we have a trend going on here. Probably going to happen again. Don't freak out. But the planet's going to be fine. If all the animals were to die on the planet like they have before, give the Earth 30, 100 million years, which is nothing for the planet, it's going to be back. It's going to be better than ever. So the planet's fine. Don't worry about the planet. It will recover. Worry about the species that are alive right now. That's what we're really worried about. You know.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, things are crazy ecologically right now. I just read something about a super volcano in California that they were concerned about, like a whole article about it. I forget which one it was, but uh, and Yellowstone's always doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I know that Schumann resonance has been really off the charts. And a lot of talk about the pole shift. Even some native tribes have made comments about the poles, the magnets and stuff doing weird stuff.
My friend just sent me an article. Let me try to pull it up. I think something in the ocean, like a jet stream. There's a current in the ocean that's incredibly important for the way our life is right now, and it seems like it's going south. It's not going well. Let me see.
Wasn't there something like
What's
a
your point?
weakness in the field or something?
We're probably just going through a moment of change. Like in the planet, like I said, it's had all these massive changes before. Okay, we need to be aware of this. Okay, it's happened so many times where all the life on Earth dies. It's probably going to happen again. I'm sorry. Don't freak out. It's natural. Live your life. Enjoy it. But we're probably going through some major changes right now. It looks
Extinction
like it.
event, an extinction event.
Yeah. Okay, here's the article. Hold on. It's called the Gulf Stream. Yeah, the Gulf Stream could collapse as early as 2025. So yeah, the Gulf Stream is a current system in the ocean that's incredibly important for the way our life is right now, to put it, in a nutshell. And I've been hearing scientists talk about it, deteriorating. Like I said, look, here's what I think about the Earth. Honestly, as a cynic and a biologist, I don't think humans are going to be able to get our act together. I think these changes are going to come, and we're going to. Here's the thing: it's so funny to me. We're going to have to change radically as humans, no matter what. But we get to choose. We could change radically before things get really, really bad and uncomfortable for our species, or, which is what I think is going to happen, things are going to get incredibly uncomfortable for us. A lot of suffering, and then we're going to radically change and adapt, and we're going to continue living. But that's so funny to me because we're going to have to change anyway. So we're just going to wait till it's the last option. And that's just the way it is. Where we could, we have the thing is that right now, as of today, all this weird stuff that we're talking about, it's completely reversible. If we all got together, we can reverse it. The Earth could be better than it ever was before. We haven't passed the red line. We probably won't pass the red line for a long time. What we're really battling is the human collective habits of humans, the collective habits of humans as far as our energy consumption, our lifestyles, and probably greed economically. But that's funny to me. So we're going to be fine. All our houses are going to be built on crazy stilts. Our houses are going to be 20 foot high. That's why the Jetsons were up so high, because they messed up the planet. That's what's going to happen. It'll be
I
fine.
saw a book by a Rolling Stone author, and I forget his name, but the book's called "Living on a Scorched Planet" or something. And it was just talking about how the heat's going to get worse every year. And I'm in Florida right now, and it's hard to be out during the daytime. It's like so humid. Just walking to the mailbox, I feel like I'm on fire. I got
Jeffrey,
attacked by mosquitoes twice, and I felt sick for days this week.
Jeffrey, when you're outside in the heat, getting hurt, enjoy it. Savor that moment. This is going to be the most pleasant summer of your life going forward. It's not going to get better. This is the best summer of your adult life as of today. Enjoy it, dude. Take it in. It's fun. Go play in the scorching sun. Fry an egg on the sidewalk. Put a steak in your mailbox and bake it. It's fun. It's not going to get better. This is a great summer.
It feels radioactive outside. I'm getting like crazy burns and whelps. I've even noticed like when you walk in the grass, you can't because there's like these barbs in it. It's like Mother Nature's trying to eat us and keep us away from it to protect itself. Like usually you can walk through we have like really good grass. I forget what kind, whatever. Everyone has it in this neighborhood. Yuppie, blah 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 grass, whatever it's called. I forget the name.
I've seen some good grass. I love me a good grass.
But there's these barbs, like I can't walk barefoot when it's summertime, or you just die. Like you'll be impaled. It's like who put those there? It's like you don't want us walking in the grass. But it's definitely with paganism, it's about getting with the wilderness and nature. That's what it's all about. So that's at least a stronger way to look at this and survive. It's a step to it, isn't it? It's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the very definition of paganism is country dweller, one who lives in the country. And it's no secret. A lot of pagans are very earth friendly. They're good gardeners. We like our gardens. We like our plants. We like our animals. We love things like that.
When the whole shift happens, I'm going to get a hold of you to find the Walking Dead community settlement to go to that's not cannibals. That seems like the way it's going. Like that's foreshadowing. Like these communities you have to go tribal pretty much when this stuff happens. And between the war stuff with Putin and all the craziness and China, it just takes one nuke or one ecological disaster to make you go back tribal to tribalism. It takes one grid down. Definitely seems like what we're living in for sure. No doubt about it. And if it keeps getting hotter, there'll be a point where you just can't even go out there without burning up. You have to have a suit or something, a mech suit.
I think that's funny. It's gonna be funny. Like I don't know if it's gonna get this way, but it'll be funny. I thought about it. Kids playing. It's gonna look like we're on an alien planet. It looks like we're gonna be on Mars with our suits on. We're just gonna be on Earth, throwing the ball around outside. We got our filters on. We got our air conditioners. We're completely covered by the UV rays, which will give us skin cancer, and we'll love it. That'll be life. But that's what might happen to the planet. Like I said, in a way, the planet's changed so many times. It is natural for the planet. If the planet's alive, it changes. It goes through areas, times when it's extremely cold. There was a time when oxygen became prevalent where it was poisonous to the majority of life. Oxygen. So the planet is moody. It's temperamental. It changes constantly. Luckily, humans are adaptable. Like I said, we're very adaptable, and we're very resilient. We're the cockroaches of the mammals, I guess. We'll stick around for sure. At least a little bit of us.
It's interesting, Harold, that you brought up Pan. I'm a Capricorn. I've done some research on that, and there's Pan's very fascinating. I found something a long time ago that told the story of how, how Capricorn became that sort of. It's a really weird story about Pan getting caught self-pleasuring, and the gods punish him and give him a serpentine tail, and the Nile River, like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know if it's some kind of mythology or something, but I read it somewhere. But I was just curious how he got a fish tail. It was just kind of, Capricorns are weird. Like, it's Pan with a fish tail, like a mergoat. and and weirdly enough, when I was in junior high, I had an incident where I was self-pleasuring and got caught by a family member, and a friend told my entire high school, and I got made fun of in ninth grade. And then the next year got testicular cancer and lost one, and then went through chemo and all this crap at 17. And then a few years later, my dad died, and I started to have crazy ass experiences. And I read a lot of occult stuff. I experimented with drugs. I started dealing. My dad told me when I was alive, if you ever did drugs, he'd kill me. So I was always scared to do them. But when he died, I was like, ah! And turned into Scarface for a couple of years. Almost got caught, went to jail, and had a miracle happen to where I didn't. I was selling stuff and had it in the house, like meth and coke and stuff. And this was in Georgia. And the police came because a neighbor called because of loud music. And I took that stuff and put it on a shelf in the back room. And they came in and searched that house and did not find it and took me in for disorderly conduct. And I came back the next day for $50. I had to pay $50 and gave it back to the person it belonged to. And it was weird because the police car they sent out for me fell in a ditch, and they had to get another police car to come get me. And it was just for disorderly conduct, and they didn't find it. And if they would have found it, I probably would have did 10 years and died in prison or something. But it made me quit, and I haven't touched that stuff in like 25 years or more. But anyway, all that suffering somehow opened my senses. And I jokingly say like Odin's eye, but maybe an eye is a little bit more important than a testicle, debatable. But somehow all that suffering opened my senses to where I saw beings of light, UFO activity. I saw some weird little cloak beings in the woods that a friend saw with me. And it's just interesting, these spiritual experiences. And during that time, I read a lot of stuff on witchcraft and Druidism and shamanism, and even the weird little Necronomicon, weird Simon crazy books that give me the creeps that aren't really real, but there's something creepy about those. We've had Peter Levenda on, who supposedly was part of that Simon collective that wrote that. But I remember being on drugs and screaming out from that book. I was an it like a fool, pretty much, back then at a graveyard. But it's just interesting, the paths we've taken, how it opens us up, and I've noticed how suffering can bring on these experiences and stuff like that. And then I have PTSD from some of this stuff. Like I've had UFOs over houses with multiple witnesses, like the UFO was there because of me or for me, and I don't remember being taken or anything like that. If so, I don't remember a damn thing, but I've had weird celestial something in the skies over my house with witnesses, and seen some weird beings, and that's why we do this show. And interestingly enough, that's why I think all the radio and the TV and stuff that we do raises consciousness about paganism and spirituality or UFOs or whatever. At one point, I was having trouble getting interviews and said a prayer and had a weird UFO sighting, and family saw it with me. And the next thing you know, I started getting interviews with people like Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist that I've seen in UFO documentaries, and Nick Pope and William Burns and Nick Redfern, like famous UFO people that, it was like it was connected somehow. And that's what made me start doing this, though. I saw weird crap, pretty much. 16 years later, and here we are. But the Pan thing, what was so appealing about that? That's interesting, especially when you tie in Bigfoot and weird creatures of the forest.
Yeah.
But what about Pan was appealing to you? I mean, is that like, what did you do did you communicate with it? Did you do like rituals around him or spells and stuff?
No, I didn't do any spells with Pan. It was just kind of, who I was walking with or trying to draw upon the energy of Pan, because Pan is a musician, and I've always liked to play music. Pan loved to drink the vine. He liked his wine. He loved to get drunk. In the early days, I used to be the biggest lush in the world. So it's just kind of like attracts like.
Is it the horn god though, like Kernanos? Is that all similar, Pan? Or there's different things, but it's kind of like that energy, like the antler horn god.
Right, right. Which is, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That Kernanos stuff, I've seen some of the artwork of that. It's pretty interesting for sure. I mean, there's something to that. Just that earth energy.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. Beautiful.
And I'm a Capricorn. What are you, Harold?
Well, my son is in Aries.
Okay.
Sun sign is in Aries.
In Aries. What are you, Wild Trees?
Well,
sign, baby.
I'm on a cusp, so sometimes I'm Gemini, sometimes I'm Taurus.
Okay.
I always don't know which one it is.
There's no Capricorns weird as hell, and Saturn and all that, and a lot of weirdos are Capricorns, like Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson and stuff. It's weird. David Bowie was one, but he's still really weird. There's weird energy. Anthony Hopkins, that's another one. It's definitely, there's something, I don't know. The Saturn thing's very interesting too. Just that energy, like death and father time and harvester of souls and all that stuff. But
I read oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna start to close out because we got 5 minutes, but yeah, Harold, give us some. First off, it's Harold Sanford Carter the Third.
Yep.
Lone Wolf, and you can put that name in and find his music. But give us some more of the links for your TV show and stuff, because I want to check that out more, and I want our audience to check it out. Give us those links.
Well, the pagan television station is called Fringe TV, and you can find that with any device with a browser. You can go and type in www.fringetv.online, and you'll come up with a website, and it'll say Circle of Ancient Sisters at the top, and you'll scroll down a little bit, and the pagan television station streams 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And we have documentaries and interviews with people in the pagan community, the modern leaders, even leaders that are no longer with us, that are in the Summerlands are there. We have footage up there of Gerald Gardner. We got the Aleister Crowley footage. We have, the Doreen Valientes. We have modern leaders from the OTO that are on there. There's a lot of different programs of sorcery, pagan music videos. You were talking about Wardrana. We have the first pagan music video block in the morning, 8 to 9, kind of like the old MTV, hour of music like they used to do when we was growing up. But it's just pagan music, www.fringetv.online. My show is called The Lone Wolf Show. It plays every Sunday at 3:00 and Monday through Friday at 9. And there's also other shows on there. The radio station that is affiliated with my circle is called the Cauldron.net. Cauldron.net plays all kinds of pagan music from around the world. That about wraps that up, man.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate it so much. It's been a great show, and we'll definitely be in touch when the apocalypse happens to find these communities. I'd rather live in one of the pagan ones than one of the weird Christian ones, probably.
Yeah, man. Come on over. We got a 50-pound cauldron outside. We'll feed you.
I don't want to do no Waco, the Christian stuff. But no, I'm just making jokes. But we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much, and thank you. It's a great show. And thank you, Wild Trees.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. And, man, my mind lately, I forget who's coming up next week. Oh, Jim Saylor. I need to check in with him. He's like a real magician that will do weird tricks on cameras with cards and stuff. So looking forward to that. That's going to be a good one. So we'll see you all next Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
I got
I
to
was
play.
going to ask, can I give my can I
Yeah.
plug my stuff? All right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm a biologist. I study animals, mostly invertebrate animal behavior. But I do talk a lot about UFOs, Bigfoot, spiritual beliefs. If you go to YouTube, my channel is Biologist Wild Trees. So technically YouTube uh, /@ the symbol Biologist Wild Trees. But I found out if you just go to Google, just type in Biologist Wild Trees, 3 words, and you'll go to my page right there, my YouTube page.
All right.
So please subscribe. I sure would appreciate it.
The tardigrade experiments. We appreciate it. And I got attacked by mosquitoes bad. Like, I didn't even know it until I was inside, and I had to take Benadryl and stuff. I was like, I hope I don't have, like, malaria. I think I'm okay, but it's something weird to me. Like, I still feel weird from it. They were, like, just waiting outside the door for the fresh meat, like, to get me. But all right, everybody, have a good weekend. Watch Twisted Metal if you want a fun show. That's by the guys that did Deadpool and Zombieland. It's on Peacock, all 10 episodes, 30 minutes apiece. And it's like a Mad Max situation. But it's good. It's got some comedy in it, so it's good. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. Good night, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Take care, Harold. Take care, Wild Trees. I got to play these commercials, and then I need some carrot cake. Somebody made a carrot cake. I'm thinking about it. All right, take care, everybody.
Bye.
Let's see. All right, take care, man. I got to play these doodads.
You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNTalkRadio.com.
Looking for stories that are fresh and new? Dark fantasy, humor, space exploration, time travel, cyberpunk, alternate history, and more. They're in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
It's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast, in 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. For 4 years, the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast has provided advice and tips from international best-selling authors, world-class artists, contest judges and winners, and industry professionals based on the world-famous Writers of the Future contest created in 1983 by L. Ron Hubbard to help the aspiring writer and artist no matter their age. It is dedicated to the future of storytelling and art by showing that it is never too late to start, and those who make it are those who never give up. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in any or all of the 3 categories: education, storyteller drama, and art. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and go out and vote now.